Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Uns Valiant, staring at the message that had just arrived from Earth. His hands gripped the edge of the control panel as he read the words for the third time, hoping they would somehow change. They didn't. The Galactic Council had delivered an ultimatum. All human colonies beyond the Sol system had to be abandoned within 30 days. Earth had to surrender control of its entire military fleet. The Council claimed humanity's rapid expansion across the stars threatened what they called galactic stability. But Jake knew the real reason. The elder species were scared. Humanity had risen too fast, achieved too much, and the ancient empires couldn't handle being challenged by newcomers. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew worked at their stations, unaware of what was coming. Lieutenant Amy Chun monitored the tactical displays. Navigation Officer Ben Hayes plotted their course through the sector. Ensign Lisa Park managed communications. These were good people. All of them had families on the colonies. All of them had believed that humanity finally had a place among the stars. He pressed the intercom button. His voice echoed through every deck of the ship. "All hands, this is the commander. Report to your stations and await further orders. We have received a priority message from Earth Command." The bridge crew looked up at him. They could hear the tension in his voice. Amy stood from her station and walked over. "Sir, what's happening?" Jake handed her the datapad. She read it and her face went pale. "They can't be serious. 200,000 people live in this sector alone. Where are they supposed to go?" "Earth, apparently. Or they'd die out here." Jake's voice was bitter. He had spent 15 years in the fleet, following every rule the Galactic Council had imposed on humanity. Humans had been model citizens of the galactic community. They traded fairly, respected boundaries, and never started conflicts. And this was how they were repaid. Ben looked up from his station. "Commander, we're receiving a fleet-wide transmission from Admiral Henry Blake. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life. Admiral Blake appeared, looking older than Jake remembered. The man's gray hair seemed to have more white in it than just a month ago. Behind him, Jake could see the command center on Earth, bustling with activity. "To all ships of the United Nations Space Fleet," Blake began. "By now you have all received the Council's ultimatum. I want you to know that President Linda Carter is working on every diplomatic option available. Ambassador Kate Sullivan is meeting with the Council representatives right now. But we must be realistic. The Council has made its position clear." Blake paused, and Jake saw something in the Admiral's eyes. Something hard and determined. "All colony evacuation ships are to begin immediate deployment. Military vessels will provide escort and protection. Under no circumstances are you to engage Council ships unless fired upon first. However, you are authorized to defend civilian lives with all necessary force." Blake out? The screen went dark. Jake turned to his crew. "You heard the Admiral. Plot a course to New Haven Colony. That's our responsibility. We get those people out." The Valiant's engines hummed to life as the ship changed course. New Haven was 3 days away at maximum speed. Jake hoped it would be enough time. The Council had given them 30 days, but he didn't trust them to honor even that small mercy on Earth. President Linda Carter sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House. Around the table sat Admiral Blake, Chief Scientist Dr. Paul Green, and a dozen other military and civilian leaders. The weight of 8 billion lives rested on the decisions they would make in this room. "What are our options?" Carter asked. She was young for a president, only 45, but she had been elected on a platform of expanding humanity's reach into space. Now that dream was turning into a nightmare. Admiral Blake pulled up a holographic display of human space. "Militarily, we're outgunned. The Council has thousands of ships. We have maybe 300 combat-capable vessels. The Valkyrie Empire alone could crush us. What about our technology?" Carter looked at Dr. Green. "You've been telling me for years that human innovation surpasses most Council species." Dr. Green stood and walked to the display. He was a thin man with nervous energy, always moving, always thinking. "Madam President, I need to show you something." something that's been classified at the highest levels. He tapped controls on his wrist device. The holographic display changed, showing schematics of weapons and ships that Carter had never seen before. For the past 10 years, a group of us have been running a black project. We call it Thunderhead. We've been developing advanced weapons systems in secret, hidden from council inspectors. Carter's eyes widened. You've been building weapons without authorization? With authorization, Blake interrupted. Mine and your predecessors. We've seen this coming for years, Madam President. The council has never treated us as equals. We knew eventually they would try to put us back in our place. Dr. Green continued. We have quantum disruptors that can tear apart ship hulls at the molecular level. AI-assisted battle networks that can coordinate entire fleets in real time. Stealth technology that makes our ships invisible to council sensors. And more, much more. Carter sat back in her chair. How many people know about this? Maybe 100 across the entire government and military, Blake said. We've been very careful. Show me everything, Carter ordered, while Earth's leaders planned. Ambassador Kate Sullivan stood in the council chambers on Unity Station, the massive space station that served as the galactic government's headquarters. The chamber was enormous, with representatives from 47 different species arranged in a circular pattern. At the center, on an elevated platform, sat the 5 members of the High Council. Ambassador Thextar of the Velkari Empire looked down at Kate with barely concealed contempt. The Velkari were tall, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. They had ruled a vast empire for 10,000 years, and they did not appreciate upstart humans questioning their authority. Ambassador Sullivan, Thextar's voice boomed through the chamber. Your species has had ample time to consider our generous offer. Humanity will withdraw from contested space and submit to council authority. This is not negotiable. Kate stood her ground. She was a career diplomat, 50 years old, and she had spent the last decade trying to build bridges between humanity and the other species. Now those bridges were burning. With respect, Ambassador New Haven Colony was established legally under council expansion guidelines. We followed every rule. We filled out every form. You approved our claim yourself. That was before we understood the true nature of human ambition, another council member spoke up. This was Ambassador Prex of the Trell Consortium, a species that resembled Earth's octopi but breathed air. You breed too fast. You expand too quickly. You are disrupting the careful balance we have maintained for millennia. You mean we're competing too well? Kate shot back. Human trade ships are faster. Our colonies are more efficient. Our technology is advancing beyond yours and you can't stand it? Thextar's face darkened. You forget your place, human. The Council has been generous allowing your primitive species to join galactic society. Do not mistake our patience for weakness. Kate looked around the chamber. Some of the other ambassadors looked uncomfortable. The Arxians, a peaceful species of scholars, seemed genuinely troubled. The Trell, despite their harsh words, appeared more worried about economics than anything else. But the Velkari and their close allies showed only arrogance and anger. What if we refuse? Kate asked quietly. The chamber fell silent. Thextar leaned forward. Then the Council will enforce its decision. By force if necessary. You have 30 days, Ambassador Sullivan. Use them wisely. Kate transmitted everything back to Earth through encrypted channels. Her final message was brief. They've made their choice. War is coming. Jake and the Valiant reached the outskirts of the New Haven system on the second day. The colony sat on a beautiful world, mostly ocean with a few large continents. 50,000 people lived in the main settlement, with another 150,000 scattered across smaller communities. They had built farms, schools, families. They had built a future. Now Jake had to tell them it was all over. Sir, we're detecting multiple transport ships in orbit, Amy reported. Looks like the evacuation has already started. Good. Coordinate with colony authorities. I want to be off this world in 48 hours. But fate had other plans. Ben suddenly looked up from his station, his face white. Commander, we have incoming ships. Multiple jump signatures. They're council vessels. Jake's blood ran cold. How many? 20 ships. Valkyrie configuration. They're big ones, sir. Cruisers and destroyers. They're early, Lisa whispered. The ultimatum gave us 30 days. Jake hit the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, battle stations. Civilian transports, begin emergency departure procedures. Get those people off the planet now. The Valkyrie ships emerged from their jump points, spreading out across the system. Jake recognized the formation. They weren't here to talk. They were here to make an example, his communicator chimed. A Valkyrie face appeared on screen. War Master Krell, commander of the Valkyrie fleet in this sector. Human vessel, you are ordered to stand down and prepare to be boarded. The debris from the destroyed transport ships floated through space like scattered stars. Jake Morrison watched the Valkyrie fleet reposition, preparing for another volley against the fleeing civilians. His hands moved across the command controls with practiced precision. The rage burning in his chest had transformed into something colder, more focused. Distance to Valkyrie formation? He asked. 60,000 kilometers and closing, Ben reported. They're maintaining defensive positions around their flagship. War Master Krell clearly expected the human ships to retreat. Why wouldn't he? The Valkyrie had 20 warships. Jake had the Valiant and 2 escort frigates. By any logical calculation, this fight was already over. Krell had never fought humans before. Amy, are the new systems online? Jake kept his voice steady, aware that the entire crew was listening. Amy checked her tactical display. Her fingers danced across controls that officially didn't exist. Yes, sir. Quantum torpedoes armed. AI battle network is active. The escorts are synced with our systems. Good. Let's show these bastards what happens when you murder children. Jake opened a channel to the 2 escort ships, the UNS Drake and the INZE Phoenix. Commanders, execute pattern Delta. Full weapons free on my mark. The 3 human ships suddenly broke formation, moving in ways that violated everything the Council knew about human tactics. The AI network Dr. Green had built connected all 3 vessels into a single coordinated unit. They moved like a school of fish, each ship anticipating the other's movements perfectly. The Valkyrie opened fire. Plasma bolts and energy beams cut through space where the human ships had been milliseconds before. But Jake's ships were already somewhere else. The AI predicting enemy fire patterns and adjusting course continuously. Torpedoes away, Amy announced. 6 quantum torpedoes streaked toward the Valkyrie formation. These weren't the standard missiles the Council had seen before. These were Dr. Green's special project, weapons that could phase shift through shields and detonate inside a ship's hull. 2 Valkyrie cruisers exploded simultaneously. The War Master's flagship rocked as another torpedo tore through its engine section. Suddenly, the Valkyrie fleet looked a lot less confident. Direct hit on 3 targets, Amy reported, her voice tight with satisfaction. Valkyrie formation is breaking. Jake pressed his advantage. The human ships dove through the confused enemy formation, firing conventional weapons at close range. The Drake took damage, its shields flaring but held together. The Phoenix destroyed a Valkyrie destroyer with a perfectly placed shot to its reactor core. Sir, more Valkyrie ships are arriving, Ben called out. Jump signatures detected. This is going to get ugly. We've already hit ugly and gone past it, Jake replied. How many transports are still on the surface? Lisa checked her communications board. 43 ships still loading. They need at least 2 more hours. 2 hours. Jake looked at his tactical display. The Valkyrie were regrouping and reinforcements were arriving. His 3 ships couldn't hold this system for 2 hours. They probably couldn't hold it for 20 minutes, unless he did something crazy. Amy, target their command ship. I want everything we have pointed at Krell's flagship. We're going to cut off the head. The Valiant swung around, its main guns tracking the massive Valkyrie vessel. War Master Krell's ship was 3 times larger than Jake's, bristling with weapons and protected by shields that could withstand Sustained bombardment. Jake didn't plan on a sustained bombardment. He planned on ramming speed. Sir, if we get that close, Ben started to protest. I know. Do it anyway. The Valiant accelerated directly at the flagship. Valkyrie weapons fire hammered against its shields. Alarms blared across the bridge. The ship shuddered with each hit. But Jake kept the course steady, closing the distance. At 5,000 meters, Amy unleashed every weapon the Valiant carried. Torpedoes, missiles, energy beams, and kinetic rounds all fired simultaneously. The flagship's shields collapsed under the overwhelming assault. Jake pulled up at the last second, the Valiant's hull scraping along the Valkyrie ship's armored plates. The flagship went dark, power failing across multiple sections. War Master Krell's command and control was gone. The Valkyrie fleet suddenly found itself leaderless, their coordination broken. All transports, this is Commander Morrison, Jake broadcast on all frequencies. You have 2 hours. Use them. We'll hold as long as we can. On Earth, President Linda Carter watched the battle through real-time feeds transmitted by spy satellites. The Situation Room had gone silent as Jake's desperate attack unfolded. When the Valkyrie flagship went dark, someone started clapping. And then everyone was applauding. Madam President, Admiral Blake said quietly, we need to respond. The Council just attacked our civilians. Carter nodded slowly. She had been president for 3 years, all of them peaceful. She had never imagined having to make this kind of decision. But watching those transport ships explode had crystallized everything. The Council wasn't interested in diplomacy. They wanted humanity to bow down or die. She stood up. Get me a direct line to every news network on Earth, and get me the leaders of every human colony. It's time to tell our people the truth. 20 minutes later, President Carter appeared on screens across human space. She stood at a podium in the White House, the symbol of Earth's government behind her. Her face was composed, but her eyes blazed with controlled fury. My fellow humans, she began. 18 minutes ago, the Galactic Council attacked civilian transport ships evacuating New Haven Colony. 3 ships were destroyed. 723 men, women, and children were killed. The Council gave us no warning. They showed no mercy. Carter paused, letting that sink in. For 15 years, humanity has tried to be good citizens of the galaxy. We followed the rules. We respected boundaries. We sought peace. Today, the Council showed us what they think of peace. They think we are weak. They think we will run. They think we will surrender. Her voice hardened. They are wrong. Carter's next words would echo through history. Effective immediately, humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We recognize no authority but our own. The Council wanted war. They have it. And they are about to learn that humans don't fight like other species. We don't give up. We don't surrender. And we sure as hell don't forget. The speech continued for another 10 minutes, but those were the words everyone remembered. Within hours, they had been translated into 47 galactic languages and broadcast to every Council world. The message was clear. Humanity was done playing nice. Admiral Blake activated Operation Thunderhead. All across human space, hidden military installations came online. Stealth ships that had been disguised as commercial vessels shed their covers and reported for duty. Construction yards revealed warships that had been built in secret over the past decade. Dr. Green coordinated the distribution of advanced weapons to every ship in the fleet. Quantum torpedoes, AI battle networks, gravity mines, and dozens of other experimental systems went from theory to deployment in a matter of hours. Some would fail. Some would malfunction. But enough would work to give humanity a fighting chance. In the New Haven system, Jake and his small force were still holding the line. The Valkyrie had reorganized after losing their flagship, but they were cautious now. They had learned that human ships were more dangerous than they looked. Status report, Jake called out. Shields at 40%, Amy replied. We're down to half our torpedoes. The Drake has lost main engines. Phoenix is holding steady. How many transports are away? Lisa smiled. Last one just cleared orbit. We did it, sir. We saved them. Jake felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Not all of them. Never all of them. But most. Most of New Haven's people were alive because his crew had held this system against impossible odds. All ships, prepare to jump, Jake ordered. We're done here. But the Valkyrie had other ideas. A massive energy reading suddenly appeared on sensors. The enemy ships were pooling their remaining power into one combined blast, targeting the fleeing transports. Jake didn't hesitate. Ben, put us between those transports and the Valkyrie fleet. Full shields forward. Sir, we can't take that kind of hit. Do it! The Valiant moved to intercept. The Valkyrie fired their combined weapons, a beam of energy so bright it lit up the entire system. The Valiant's shields caught the blast, holding for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 8 seconds. Then they collapsed. The beam tore into the Valiant's hull. Jake felt the ship dying around him. Secondary explosions rocked the vessel. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by emergency red lighting. Damage report. Jake shouted over the alarms. Amy pulled herself up from where the blast had thrown her. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Main reactor is offline. We're venting atmosphere, the transports. Safe, they're jumping out now. Jake smiled grimly. The ship was dying, but the civilians were safe. That was what mattered. Abandoned ship. All hands to escape pods. That's an order. The crew evacuated in organized chaos. Jake made sure everyone else got off before heading to his own escape pod. As he climbed in, he took one last look at the Valiant's bridge. This ship had been his home for 5 years. Now it would be his tomb. The escape pods scattered through space as the Valiant's reactor went critical. The explosion took out 2 more Valkyrie ships that had moved. Jake Morrison stood at the observation window of the Mars orbital shipyards, watching the final construction crews swarm over the UN's retribution. The ship was enormous, dwarfing every vessel around it. Its hull gleamed with fresh armor plating, and its weapon arrays looked like they could crack a moon in half. Behind him, Admiral Blake approached with a tablet full of specifications. She's a beauty, isn't she? She's terrifying, Jake replied honestly. How many ships like this do we have? Just this one for now. But we have 37 other warships ready for deployment. Cruisers, destroyers, and frigates. All equipped with the new technology. All ready to hit the Council where it hurts. Jake turned away from the window. His new uniform still felt strange. Commander Morrison had become Admiral Morrison in a ceremony that lasted exactly 5 minutes. There hadn't been time for anything more elaborate. What's the strategic picture? Blake pulled up a holographic star map. Red markers indicated Council military positions. Blue markers showed human forces. There was a lot more red than blue. The Council is mobilizing for a major offensive. The Valkyrie are gathering a fleet at their main staging area. Intelligence suggests they're planning to hit Earth directly. How long do we have? Maybe 2 months. 3 if we're lucky. Blake zoomed in on several systems, which is why we're not waiting for them. Operation Thunderhead's second phase is a coordinated strike on 12 Council military installations. We hit them all at once, across a front spanning hundreds of light years. Jake studied the targets. Supply depots, shipyards, command centers, and fleet anchorages. Each one was heavily defended. Each one would cost human lives. When? 48 hours. Your strike force will hit the hardest target. Blake highlighted a massive station orbiting a gas giant. Theta Station. It's the Valkyrie's main forward operating base in this sector. 600 staff, 60 ships, docked for refit, and enough military hardware to level a planet. And you want me to destroy it with 20 ships? Blake smiled grimly. I want you to make it disappear. Show the Council that nowhere is safe. Show them that humanity can reach out and touch them whenever we want. 2 days later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Retribution. The ship hummed with power around him. His crew worked at their stations with the calm efficiency of professionals who knew they were heading into hell. Lieutenant Amy Chun had transferred with him from the Valiant. She now sat at the tactical station, coordinating the strike force's weapons. Lieutenant Ben Hayes managed navigation, plotting jump routes that would bring them into the target system with maximum surprise. Commander Lisa Park had been promoted to his second-in-command. She monitored communications from all 20 ships in their formation. "All vessels report ready, sir." "Then let's go knock on the Valkyrie's front door," Jake ordered. "Execute jump sequence." Space folded and the strike force vanished from the Sol system. They would arrive at Theta Station in 3 hours. 3 hours to prepare for the biggest fight of Jake's life. In the fleet were some of humanity's best commanders. Captain Ryan Foster commanded the cruiser Eon's Thunder, a ship built around a single massive railgun. Commander Angela Brooks led a squadron of stealth frigates, ships that could slip through sensor nets and strike from nowhere. Captain Greg Stone piloted the carrier UN's Independence. Loaded with automated fighter drones controlled by AI systems, they were outgunned and outnumbered. But they had superior technology, and something the Council had never seen before: desperation backed by skill on Earth. Dr. Paul Green gave a final briefing to President Carter and her war cabinet. Holographic displays showed real-time data from every front. The neural network tactical system is fully deployed. Every ship in Admiral Morrison's force is connected. They'll move and fight as one unit. "What are the odds of success?" Carter asked. Green didn't sugarcoat it. "Theta Station has defensive batteries that could hold off a fleet twice our size. But they've never fought coordinated human tactics before. If Admiral Morrison can get inside their defensive perimeter, we have a chance. And if he can't? Then we lose 20 ships and our best commanders." Green met her eyes. "Madam President, this is a gamble. But if we don't take risks, we'll lose this war by playing it safe. The Council expects us to defend Earth and hope for mercy. We need to prove we're willing to burn their house down instead." Carter looked at Admiral Blake. "Your assessment?" "Jake Morrison is the right person for this mission. If anyone can pull off the impossible, it's him. And if he succeeds, it'll change the entire war. The Council will have to divert forces to defend their own territory instead of attacking ours." "Then we commit," Carter decided. "May luck be with them." The strike force emerged from their jump at the edge of the target system. Theta Station hung in orbit around a massive gas giant, its lights visible even from millions of kilometers away. Sensor readings showed exactly what intelligence had predicted: 60 ships, multiple defense platforms, and enough firepower to flatten anything that approached. "Stealth systems active," Amy reported. "We're invisible to their sensors." For now, Jake studied the tactical display. Dr. Green's stealth technology was good, but it wasn't perfect. The moment they got close enough or powered up weapons, the station would detect them. They would have maybe 5 minutes of surprise. 5 minutes to cause as much damage as possible. "Lisa, give me a fleet-wide channel," Jake ordered. "Channel open, sir." Jake took a breath. His words would be recorded, played back in history classes, analyzed by future strategists. But right now, he just needed to tell his people the truth. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. You all know what we're up against. You all know the odds. The Council thinks we'll roll over and die. They think humans are weak. In about 5 minutes, we're going to show them how wrong they are. Every ship they have docked at that station is a ship they can't use against Earth. Every weapon we destroy is a weapon they can't aim at our families. We didn't start this war, but we're damn sure going to finish it." Morrison out. The fleet moved forward in perfect formation, the AI network coordinating their approach. They split into 3 groups, each targeting different sections of the station. At 50,000 kilometers, the station's sensors finally detected them. Alarms blared across Theta Station. Valkyrie crews scrambled to their battle stations. Defense platforms swiveled to track the incoming human ships. "We're made," Ben announced. "They're powering up weapons." "All ships, weapons free," Jake commanded. "Hit them with everything." The Retribution's main guns spoke first, sending streams of accelerated metal slugs at near-light speed. The projectiles tore through a defense platform before it could get its shields up. Ryan Foster's Thunder fired its massive railgun, the recoil pushing the ship backward even with compensators. The shot punched clean through a docked Valkyrie destroyer. Angela Brooks's stealth frigates appeared, like ghosts inside the defensive perimeter. They had been coasting on momentum, invisible and silent. Now they opened fire at point-blank range, crippling ship after ship before the Valkyrie could respond. The station fought back. Energy beams lanced out, catching one of Jake's destroyers. The human ship's shields failed, and secondary explosions rippled along its hull. But for every human ship hit, 3 Valkyrie vessels died. Commander Brooks is requesting permission for close approach, Lisa reported. Granted. Tell her to make it count. Angela's squadron dove toward the station itself, dodging defensive fire. Her ships were fast and small, harder to hit than the larger vessels. She brought her squadron into a tight formation and fired a full spread of quantum torpedoes directly at the station's reactor core. The torpedoes phased through the station's shields and armor, detonating deep inside its structure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Theta Station's lights flickered. The reactor was failing. All ships, emergency retreat, Jake ordered. Get clear of the blast radius. The human fleet turned and burned hard, accelerating away from the station. Behind them, Theta Station's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the entire system, a miniature sun that consumed the station and everything within 10,000 kilometers. When the light faded, Theta Station was gone. So were 30 Valkyrie ships, 2 defense platforms, and the Valkyrie's main supply hub for this entire sector. Jake's fleet had lost 4 ships. 16 remained, damaged but functional. The price had been high. But the message sent was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere, anytime. Set course for the rally point, Jake ordered. His voice was tired but satisfied. Time to go home. But Theta Station was just one of 12 targets. All across the frontier, human strike forces hit Council installations. Captain Danny Cruz destroyed a shipyard at Helix Prime. Commander Sarah Walsh crippled a fleet anchorage at Beta Station. Commander Kevin Hart collapsed a jump point using gravity mines, trapping an entire Council patrol fleet in a dead-end system. The attacks happened within the same 4-hour window. The Council's communication networks lit up with distress calls and damage reports. 12 facilities destroyed or disabled. Nearly 200 Council ships lost. The Galactic Council's military superiority suddenly looked a lot less certain on Unity Station. The Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador Thextar faced angry questions from representatives of species whose ships had been destroyed in the attacks. Hey! Commander Ben Hayes burst onto the bridge of the Retribution, waving a data tablet like it was on fire. Jake Morrison looked up from the tactical displays he had been studying for the past 6 hours. Ben's face was pale, which was never a good sign. We've got confirmation, Ben said, pulling up the intelligence report on the main screen. The Valkyrie fleet is moving. 300 warships. They're taking the direct route to Earth. Estimated arrival time is 18 days. Jake felt his stomach drop. 300 ships. The entire Valkyrie armada, plus vessels from their allied species. Every warship they could scrape together from across their empire. It was more firepower than humanity had ever faced. What can Earth field for defense? Jake asked. Admiral Blake says he can pull together maybe 80 ships. But half of those are older models without the new technology. We're outgunned 5-1, sir. Lisa Park spoke up from the communications station. Admiral Blake is recalling all strike forces. He wants every ship back to defend Earth. Jake stared at the star map. If they recalled all the human ships scattered across the frontier, they might have 100 vessels to throw at the Valkyrie. It still wouldn't be enough. The math was brutal and simple. Humanity would lose unless they changed the game. Then, plot the Valkyrie fleet's course. Show me every system they have to pass through to reach Earth. The star map updated, showing a glowing line from Valkyrie space to the Sol system. The route passed through 7 star systems, most of them empty or lightly populated. What are you thinking? Amy asked. Jake pointed at one system in particular. The Valkyrie fleet has to refuel here. It's the only gas giant on their route with the right composition for their drive systems. If they don't stop there, they won't have enough fuel to reach Earth. Lisa saw where he was going. You want to hit them while they're refueling. When they're vulnerable? More than that, Jake said slowly. I want to hit them so hard they have to turn back. And while we're doing that ... He zoomed out the map to show the Valkyrie homeworld. We hit Valkyra Prime itself. The bridge went silent. What Jake was suggesting was insane. It was also brilliant. Sir, Amy said carefully, we don't have enough ships to split our forces. If we send a strike team to Valkyra Prime, we'll have even fewer ships to stop the Grand Fleet. I know. But think about it from War Master Krell's perspective. He's leading this armada to crush Earth, but if his homeworld is under attack, what will he do? What can he do? The Valkyrie care more about their sacred sites and their capital than they care about destroying humanity. If we threaten what they love, they'll pull back. Ben pulled up navigation data. The route to Valkyra Prime through uncharted space would require using the experimental jump drives. The ones that have a 20% failure rate. I know, Jake repeated. Which is why I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. I need volunteers, people willing to risk everything on a desperate gamble. Lisa smiled. I'm in, so am I, Amy said immediately. Someone has to keep you all alive, Ben added with a shrug. One by one, the bridge crew volunteered. Within an hour, Jake had his strike force for Valkyra Prime. 8 ships. All commanded by people who understood this was probably a one-way trip. Jake opened a channel to Admiral Blake on Earth. Sir, I have a plan. You're going to hate it. Blake listened to Jake's proposal, his face getting darker with each sentence. When Jake finished, the Admiral was quiet for a long moment. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Yes, sir. It might also be the only thing that could work. Blake rubbed his temples. All right. You take 8 ships and hit Valkyra Prime. I'll position our forces at the refueling point and hit the Grand Fleet while they're taking on fuel. But Jake, if it doesn't work, Earth will fall anyway. At least this way we go down swinging. Blake smiled grimly. That's the human spirit. Godspeed, Admiral Morrison. On Earth, President Linda Carter reviewed the plan with her war cabinet. Dr. Paul Green was already making calculations. The experimental jump drives should work. In theory. We've only tested them twice, and both times we lost contact with the test ships. Comforting, Carter said dryly. What about Earth's defenses? Admiral Blake pulled up defensive schematics. We've fortified the asteroid belt with weapon platforms. The moon has been turned into a fortress. We've deployed gravity mines at every likely approach vector. And we have one more surprise. He showed them something that made even Carter's eyes widen. You actually built it? Dr. Green and his team finished it last week. The Cascade device. It's a weapon that can generate a quantum shockwave. It'll destroy everything in a 1 million kilometer radius, including Earth if we're not careful, Green added nervously. It's a last resort weapon. If the Valkyrie fleet breaks through all our defenses and reaches Earth orbit, we can use it. But we'd be destroying a good chunk of our own defensive fleet in the process. Better than letting the Valkyrie win, Carter said firmly. Jake and his strike force prepared to jump. The Retribution led 7 other ships, all of them crewed by volunteers. Commander Angela Brooks had volunteered her stealth frigate squadron. Captain Ryan Foster insisted on bringing the thunder. Commander Julia Grant, who had rescued Jake after the Valiant's destruction, commanded the heavy cruiser Marathon. They stood on the edge of known space, about to jump into the void. The route they would take had never been mapped. The experimental drives could tear their ships apart at any moment, but they were out of safer options. All ships report ready, Lisa announced. Jake took a deep breath. Execute jump sequence. See you on the other side? Space twisted. The Retribution and its escorts vanished, leaving only the faint radiation signature of the experimental drives. They would arrive at Valkyra Prime in 3 days. or they would be torn apart in the void between stars. Either way, there was no turning back now. The Valkyrie Grand Fleet reached the refueling station right on schedule. War Master Krell stood on his new flagship, the Divine Retribution, and watched his armada spread out across the system. 300 ships, the pride of the Valkyrie Empire. Nothing in human space could stop them. Begin refueling operations, Krell ordered. I want all ships fully loaded within 12 hours. Then we proceed to Earth and end this conflict. But Admiral Blake had other plans. Hidden in the system's outer asteroid belt, 70 human ships waited in silent mode. Every system powered down except life support. No energy signatures. No heat traces. Just cold metal drifting among cold rocks. Blake sat in the command chair of the UN's Enterprise, Earth's second dreadnought. He watched the Valkyrie fleet spread out, hundreds of ships all focused on taking on fuel. They were vulnerable, distracted, and arrogant. Admiral, all ships report ready, his tactical officer reported. Blake smiled. Light them up? 70 human ships powered up simultaneously. The asteroids that had hidden them suddenly bloomed with energy signatures. Weapons came online. Shields activated. And the trap was sprung. The human fleet emerged from the asteroid field like vengeful ghosts. Blake's forces dove into the Valkyrie formation, targeting fuel tankers and supply ships. Quantum torpedoes phased through shields. Railguns tore through unprepared vessels. AI-coordinated attacks overwhelmed Valkyrie defenses. War Master Krell watched in horror as his carefully organized fleet descended into chaos. How did they know we would be here? How did they find us? The answer was that humanity had spent months mapping Valkyrie fuel requirements and calculating where they would need to refuel. Intelligence work, not luck. But Krell didn't know that. He saw only human ships appearing from nowhere, destroying his tankers and crippling his supply lines. All ships battle formation, Krell roared. Destroy the humans! But the human ships were faster, more coordinated, and fighting with the desperation of people defending their home. They hit and ran, striking vulnerable targets and retreating before the Valkyrie could bring their superior numbers to bear. Blake's Enterprise fired its main batteries into a Valkyrie battleship, punching through its armor. Captain Danny Cruz's destroyer squadron swarmed a carrier, overwhelming its defenses with mass torpedo fire. Commander Sarah Walsh led her stealth ships in a surgical strike on Krell's flagship. Damaging its jump drives, the battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the Valkyrie had lost 47 ships and most of their fuel tankers. Blake's forces had lost 23 ships, but they had accomplished their mission. The Valkyrie Grand Fleet was stranded, unable to complete their journey to Earth without refueling. Krell stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How had this happened? How had 70 human ships gutted his armada? Then his communications officer ran onto the bridge. War Master, we're receiving a distress call from Valkyra Prime. They're under attack. Jake Morrison emerged from the experimental jump in orbit around Valkyra Prime. The journey through uncharted space had been terrifying. Reality itself seemed to bend around the ship. 2 vessels didn't make it, torn apart by forces that shouldn't exist. But 6 ships, including the Retribution, had survived, and now they faced the Valkyrie homeworld. The planet below was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, sprawling cities lit up like jewels. Orbital stations and defense platforms surrounded it. But most of the Valkyrie fleet was with Krell, heading to Earth. The home defense force was minimal. The war had been going on for 4 months. 4 months of battles, losses, victories, and sacrifices. Jake Morrison sat in his quarters aboard the Retribution, staring at a list of names. Every person who had died under his command. The list kept growing, and each name felt like a weight on his chest. A knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in!" Admiral Blake entered, looking tired but satisfied. "We've received a communication from the Arxians. They want to talk." Jake set down the datapad. "Talk about what?" "Peace. They're organizing a meeting on neutral ground. They want representatives from humanity and from the moderate council species." No Valkyrie. No hardliners. Just people who want this war to end. Can we trust them? Blake sat down heavily. The Arxians never supported this war. They abstained from the vote to expel us. Their ambassador has been quietly reaching out to Kate Sullivan for weeks. I think they're genuine. Jake thought about the thousands who had died. The colonies destroyed. The families torn apart. Could any peace deal make up for that? What does President Carter say? She wants to explore it. But she's sending Kate, not me or you. This needs diplomacy, not soldiers. Kate's good at what she does. The best. Blake stood to leave, then paused. Jake, when this war ends, however it ends, you need to know something. You saved humanity. The attack on Valkara Prime changed everything. The Council will never see us as weak again. After Blake left, Jake returned to his list of names. He hoped Blake was right. He hoped all these deaths meant something. Ambassador Kate Sullivan stood on the observation deck of the Arxian space station Harmony. The station floated in neutral space, far from any military installations. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from a dozen different species arriving. Not warships. Diplomatic vessels. An Arxian approached her. The species looked similar to Earth's salamanders, but stood upright and wore elaborate robes. This one was Ambassador Vexilin, the Arxian who had first reached out to humanity. Ambassador Sullivan, thank you for coming, Vexilin's translator rendered his speech in perfect English. I know this requires great trust. Trust works both ways, Kate replied. Your people risked a lot reaching out to us. The war is wrong. It was always wrong. The Valkyrie attacked your civilians without provocation. Many council species now see this clearly. Vexilin gestured to the arriving ships. Representatives from 17 species are here. All of them want to discuss peace. And the Valkyrie? Isolated. Their allies grow fewer by the day. The Trell Consortium has withdrawn all support. The economic cost became too high. Vexilin's large eyes showed something that might have been sadness. War makes everyone poor except those who sell weapons. The conference began 2 hours later. Kate sat at a circular table with representatives from 17 species. Some she recognized. Others were new to her. But all of them looked tired of war. The Trell ambassador spoke first, his tentacles moving in complex patterns. The consortium has calculated the costs. This war has destroyed 3 trillion credits in trade value. 6 major shipping routes are closed. 42 commercial stations have been damaged or destroyed. Humanity alone didn't cause this, but the conflict affects everyone. The Valkyrie caused this, Kate said firmly. They attacked our civilians. They refused every diplomatic solution. Humanity defended itself. We know, Vexilin said. Which is why we propose a new framework. The old Galactic Council is dead. It died when the Valkyrie turned it into a weapon. We propose something new. A federation of equals where no species dominates others. Kate leaned forward. What would humanity's role be in this federation? Equal partners, the Arxian replied. Full sovereign rights. Control of your own military. Free trade and movement? Everything the old council denied you. It sounded too good to be true. Kate had been a diplomat long enough to know that nothing came free. And in exchange? Help us rebuild. Your technology, your energy, your innovation. Share it with the galaxy, not as subordinates but as partners. And help us ensure that species like the Valkyrie never dominate the galaxy again. The negotiations took 3 days. Kate worked with her team around the clock, hammering out details. Territorial rights. Trade agreements. Mutual defense pacts. Recognition of human sovereignty. Everything humanity had fought for now being offered at a conference table, but the Valkyrie weren't at that table. And War Master Krell still commanded a fleet of 250 ships. The war wasn't over until he said it was over. On his flagship, War Master Krell faced his own crisis. Half of his allied species had withdrawn their ships. His supply lines were disrupted. And now he was hearing reports of peace negotiations that excluded the Valkyrie entirely. "We should attack now," urged Commander Trock, his second-in-command. "Strike Earth before they can rebuild their defenses." "With what?" Krell gestured at the tactical display. "We have 250 ships. They have destroyed our fuel reserves, our repair facilities, our forward bases. If we attack Earth and fail, we will have nothing left. Then we admit defeat? We, who have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Krell was silent. Pride warred with practicality. The humans had proven stronger than anyone expected. They fought with a ferocity that shocked the galaxy. Every Valkyrie victory came at a cost too high to sustain, but admitting defeat meant accepting humanity as equals. It meant acknowledging that the Valkyrie Empire was no longer the supreme power in the galaxy. "Send a message," Krell said finally. "To the human admiral, Morrison. I want to meet with him." Jake received the message while the Retribution was on patrol near the Mars shipyards. War Master Krell wanted to meet under a flag of truce. No weapons. No tricks. Just two warriors talking. Admiral Blake was skeptical. "It could be a trap." "It could be," Jake agreed. "But it could also be our chance to end this without more deaths." "I'm going." "Not alone, you're not." "Alone, that's the deal. If Krell wants to kill me, he'll have his chance. But I don't think that's what this is about." The meeting took place on a small asteroid station, abandoned years ago but still structurally sound. Jake arrived in a shuttle, alone as agreed. Krell's shuttle landed on the opposite side of the station. The two warriors met in a chamber that once served as a control room. Now it was just an empty space with windows looking out at the stars. Krell was tall, imposing, with 4 arms and the bearing of someone who had commanded armies. Jake was smaller, human, but carried himself with the confidence of a man who had faced death and survived. They stood across from each other for a long moment, sizing each other up. "You fought well," Krell said finally. His translator made his voice sound deeper than it probably was. "So did you," Jake replied honestly. "I underestimated your species." "We all did." Krell walked to the window. "When we first encountered humans, you were just beginning to explore your own star system. Primitive, weak, we thought you would always be beneath. Yes, we're fast learners, clearly." Krell turned back to Jake. "I have lost 63 ships in this war. 3,000 Valkyrie warriors. My homeworld was attacked for the first time in our recorded history. All because we thought humans would be easy to dominate. You could have just treated us as equals from the start." "Yes," Krell admitted. "We could have. But the Valkyrie have ruled for so long, we forgot that power isn't permanent. You reminded us." Jake studied the War Master. He saw no deception in those alien eyes, just exhaustion and a kind of respect. "Why did you want to meet?" "Because I want this war to end. But I need to understand something first. If I stand down, if the Valkyrie accept peace, what happens to my people? Do you humans believe in revenge?" Jake thought about all the names on his list. All the people who died because the Valkyrie started this war. Part of him wanted revenge. Wanted to see the Valkyrie Empire broken and humiliated, but a larger part of him was just tired of death. "We believe in justice," Jake said carefully. "The people who ordered the attack on civilians should face consequences. But the average Valkyrie soldier? The civilians on your homeworld? They were just following orders or living their lives. We're not going to punish them for their leader's mistakes. You spared our civilians when you attacked Valkara Prime. You could have destroyed our cities. We're not monsters. We fight wars to defend ourselves, not to commit genocide." Krell nodded slowly. "Then perhaps there is hope for peace." He paused, then extended one of his 4 hands. "The Valkyrie military will stand down. We will participate in the peace negotiations. And I will testify before any tribunal about the decisions that led to this war." Jake took the offered hand. It felt strange, alien, but the grip was firm. "The galaxy will remember this, War Master. Let them remember that the Valkyrie know when to stop fighting. That is also a form of strength. The peace negotiations took another month. Ambassador Kate Sullivan led the human delegation with skill that impressed even the most skeptical species. The terms were better than anyone had hoped. The Galactic Council was dissolved and replaced by the Galactic Federation. 53 species signed the founding charter, with humanity as a full member. The Valkyrie signed too, though their representatives looked uncomfortable throughout the ceremony. War Master Krell and 3 other Valkyrie leaders faced a tribunal for ordering the attack on civilian transports. The trials were fair, televised across the galaxy.